Okay, we are here to preview a UConn matchup that's coming up on Friday night. And joining me back on the podcast, you've heard him before. It's Akeem Glaspie of the Indy Star here to help us break down Butler. So welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I think the best place to start with this Butler team is that I mean they've certainly exceeded my expectations that I had for this team heading into this year. For you being following this team so closely, have they exceeded your expectations by a certain extent there?
Yes, I would say so. I mean, but at the same time, this is a pretty much an entirely remade roster. Only two players returned from last year, and only one of them, Jalen Thomas, was a significant contributor to last year's team. So, Coach Dad might have really wanted to bring in players with chips on their shoulders. Players with some edge. Players that he felt that he could coach, and he seems to have done that. He added Pierre Brooks from Michigan State, Jamil Tuffert from Northeastern, Posh Alexander from St. John's, and then they have some freshman contributors as well. Andre Screen, a 7-1 center from Bucknell, just Landon Moore, another transfer from St. Francis. So just he was really active in the transfer portal and really remade the roster. And most of those players have been really key contributors this year.
I know it's always tough when you do these kind of rebuilds by the portal where you kind of basically bring in an entirely new roster. How do you think he's been able to get this roster to gel and have the chemistry at this point in the season, where they've been playing at a pretty high level?
Yeah, they've, I guess, kind of Posh Alexander and Jamil Telford have been kind of the spearheads behind that. They're two very experienced players. They're both seniors, and in the summer they seem to have really just taken on leadership roles. They did like a lot of team bonding stuff. A lot of time spent in the gym together, and that seemed to have really paid off. They've known each other since like March, but they're always talking about team chemistry and team bonding and how important that is. And it just seems to be a lot of like-minded individuals that have come in and with a very business-like mindset, and it's really helped to gel. I mean, I know they did some like team bonding work with a former Green Beret as well. So just
Okay.
yeah, they really focused on team building, and because they had to come together quickly, and it seems to be
Yeah.
paying off.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you see places where they try to do similar processes and it just doesn't quite work out the way it has so far at Butler. Knowing that this is a pretty new roster for Butler, it's certainly going to be a lot of new names for UConn fans who have seen these games against Butler in the past. Break down the roster a little bit in terms of some of these guys. I know you went through some of the names, but take us through some of the guys that UConn fans should have their eyes on in this game.
Yeah, so Butler's leading scorer is Pierre Brooks the second. He's a transfer from Michigan State. He's a 6'6", kind of hybrid forward guard, a wing player. He's 240 pounds, so he's a really strong, a really strong guy. He can score on all three levels. He shoots three really well. He's averaging 16 points a game. He's playing with a lot of confidence because in 2 years at Michigan State, he rarely played at all. But now he's a former four-star recruit, Mr. Basketball at Michigan. So he's kind of living up to that pedigree now that he has a chance to kind of shine at Butler. And then we have Jamil Telford. He's another forward, like 6'7", another big body, strong guy. He was a 3-year player at Northeastern. He's averaging 14 points a game, another just talented wing. And kind of maybe the most exciting player I forgot to mention is DJ Davis, another transfer from UC Irvine. He's probably one of the best shooters, maybe in the entire Big East. He's shooting 39% from three, 33s already. He can shoot from anywhere. He has parking lot range, so to say. Can shoot from the logo, really crafty with the ball, step back dribbles, and he can create going to the basket as well, with floaters and that type of thing. So he's a really talented scorer. And then you have Andre Screen, the 7-1 big man from Bucknell. He comes off the bench. Jalen Thomas is a returning starting center. Landon Moore is like a combo guard out of St. Francis from last year. Posh Alexander is I'm sure you guys are familiar with him, former St. John's starting point guard, and he's now at Butler, just a super crafty defender, former Big East Defensive Player of the Year. And that's Finley Bizjack is a freshman. They have three freshmen on the roster this year. Finley Bizjack, Bowden Kapke is a center from Minnesota, and Augusto Cassia is a 6'8" forward from Brazil. He actually played at the NBA Academy in Australia. So he's kind of, but he's been injured and he's only appeared in one game so far. So he hasn't. We're still kind of waiting to see what he can do, but he's kind of an intriguing player. And then Connor Turnbull is a athletic forward, kind of can dunk everything and shoot. So yeah, it's just a really exciting roster.
I'm going to take a quick break from the interview to tell you about my friends at Martin Rosol's Meats. This fourth generation Connecticut family business produces kielbasa, hot dogs, sausages, and deli meats using Martin Rosol's very own original recipes. Their products can be found in grocery stores, delis, restaurants, and hot dog stands throughout the state. And if you're looking for your fill right away, check out their retail store in New Britain. For more information, visit martinroselsinc.com and go support a UConn fan owned business. And now, back to the interview. Yeah, when you look at this team in the games they've won and played well at, especially when you look at some of these better teams that they've beaten, whether it's Texas Tech, Boise State, those types of teams. What has this Butler team done particularly well in those games?
Yeah, I would say that they score well. They have a lot of players that can score in double figures. It's almost a double-edged sword though, because they tend to get in shootouts. They've played two overtime games. Sometimes, closing out games can be difficult for them, but they can definitely score with the best of them. So that's something that they do very well, and they shoot free throws really well too, which kind of helps them pull out close games. So I would say offense is definitely their strength right now.
On the flip side, then, does that mean that the defense has been a weakness? We saw when they played at Michigan State. They've struggled a little bit against St. John's. Those types of games that they've lost. Has it been mostly on the defensive end that things kind of fallen apart for them a little bit?
Yeah, I would say defense and especially offensive rebounding. And the offensive rebounding or allowing offensive rebound, sorry, which leads to second chance points that has really hurt them. So yes, defense and rebounding have been kind of the weaknesses and areas they need to improve.
When you look at the job Thad Matta has done there, it seemed like things have been a little questionable. Hadn't probably gotten off to the start he wanted there. Now, does it seem like the momentum's building back around this Butler program? Whether it's through just fan excitement and things like that.
I would say so. I mean, Hinkle is always an electric place to watch a game, and the crowd really seems to be behind this team. They are coming in to Friday's game on a two-game losing streak. They lost in overtime to Providence on a game they were leading, until the final seconds, and they allowed a three that forced overtime, and then they lose by 10 in overtime. So that's a tough loss on the road that they should have gotten, and then they lose again to St. John's by 16. So I mean, I would say at this exact moment, they're kind of a little rocky, but and then I guess you don't want to see UConn on the roster or on the schedule when you had a little bit of a rough patch. But yeah, no, I would say overall the excitement is high and the fans really seem to believe in this team right now.
I know and I'll wrap with this one for you. I know if you kind of look at Butler in the overall college basketball picture right now, they're one of those teams that would probably be squarely on the bubble in terms of NCAA tournament consideration. If you look at this team for the rest of the season, if they want to make the tournament, what do they have to do?
Yeah, they have to play better on the road. Like I said, Providence and St. John's losses were on the road. They have neutral site losses, or a neutral site loss at Florida Atlantic, and a road loss to Michigan State. I mean, those are all solid teams, but eventually they're going to have to knock off one of these teams on the road because you can't go winless on the road. So that's going to be something that, and especially if you want to be a tournament team, you're going to have to show that you can play in road or neutral environments. So that's something that they need to improve on. And defense, again, is something that they need to really improve on and just kind of win with defense because if again shootouts are really tough and that's not a sustainable way to kind of play. You need to score, have two players score 20 points every game. That'd be a rough way to play. So I would say improvement on the road and just improving on defense and rebounding is kind of what they need to do to kind of improve their resume and maybe you know get to the NCAA tournament.
Friday night, 6:30. It's gonna be a fun one. How's Hinkle gonna be on a Friday night? Gonna be a fun spot.
Oh, I think it's going to be electric. The students are going to be back from Christmas break. Again, a Friday night, a 6:30 start, so it's not an 8:30 start. So I expect it to be a very lively atmosphere, and it should be a fun one.
I lied. I've got one more for you. As I've got you on, you're my Indiana guy here. So how is Butler basketball being looked at within the state of Indiana now, especially with Notre Dame having a down season? Indiana's not off to its best start. I know you've got Purdue to compete with, but how's Butler looking in that kind of statewide picture there?
I would say, Thad Matta brings a lot of credibility. So, he's won pretty much everywhere he's been. So I think people expect Butler to kind of return to where it is or where it has been, under Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
That's kind of the expectations, and but Purdue is kind of the standard right now. They're just a monster with Zach Edey and Lance Jones and those guys. So they're kind of the standard and the top dog. And IU, it's their fan base might be a little more restless than Butler's right now, especially after losing to Nebraska. And they have they're recruiting at a different level, so I'm sure they'd like to see a little better results. So I don't know. I don't want to say Butler's in a better place than IU right now, but the fan base is definitely happier with Butler than IU's is with the Hoosiers. So it's an interesting place to be in Indiana college basketball fan right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, for sure. And I know you got a lot of people out here in Connecticut, big time Indiana fans after UConn beat Indiana at the Garden. They want that win to be better than a quad three win at that neutral site there. So I know everyone's pulling for Indiana to pick things up there too. Um, but
I
Akeem,
bet.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on and helping break down this Butler team.
Yes, thanks for having me.